Whew, that's a mouthful of a plot.
We're all gonna die.
I hope so.
Oh, for sake.
Drive-by movies you're watching.
Fresh releases.
My name is Blaze.
And my name is James.
And this week we're talking the brand new James Gunn film, The Suicide Squad.
That's my dad.
I want to get you out of your life.
I'm going to get you out of here alive.
The Suicide Squad is the new reboot that is available in theaters as well as HBO Max. It is about supervillains Harley Quinn, Bloodsport, Peacemaker, and a collection of nutty cons at Belle Reve prison that joined the super secret, super shady Task Force X as they are dropped off at the remote enemy-infused island of Corto Maltese. So, I mean, just flat out, I guess we'll just say it, like, we are not superhero fans, like, really whatsoever. Like, some people might be like, oh, you don't like DC movies like everyone else does. No, I'm just not really a fan of any Marvel or DC movies. Blaze, you can speak on that too. I guess there's just ones that I hate less than others for the most part, but there's not too many that I actually genuinely enjoy. There are a few of them, but not a whole lot, especially in this modern decade that we've gotten where it's the reign of superhero movies. However, I actually did enjoy this one and didn't hate it as much as others. Blaze, what'd you think?
Honestly, I'll just flat out say it. I think this is like the best superhero movie ever made. Not that it's the best movie ever made, but it's the best superhero movie ever made because we can go on and on about it, and like we probably will, but I think it's an understatement when you said we're not really superhero guys. I feel like for me, I've pretty much checked out of all the superhero movies. I feel like I usually eventually get around to them. Like when Disney Plus came out, I got around to most all of them, and I pretty much disliked the majority of them. Not because like, oh, I'm a DC guy or I'm a Marvel guy. Like, it's funny that you mentioned that because whenever you tell someone like, oh, well, you like Marvel movies, but you just probably don't like DC, right? Or they'll say vice versa. It's like, nah, dude, they both are bad. Like, I like what are you talking about? Like, oh, I like one over the other. Like, this isn't Pepsi and Coke. Like, no, they're just they're both significantly bad. It has nothing to do with this has more jokes or whatever. But I think that's just like kind of my opinion about it. I know I'm a little bit more harsh than you. But for me, it really boils down to the stakes are very minimal when everyone has superpowers that make them almost godlike, essentially. Mm-hmm. I think probably a lot of the reason why I enjoyed this movie is obviously you have these heroes that are so second rate to where their power isn't really even like a power at all. You have characters like the Weasel that so literally you're in like scratching your head like, is he literally just a weasel?
Is this thing a dog?
A dog? What kind of dog do you think it is, mate?
I'm gonna go with Afghan Hound.
Oh my God, is it a werewolf?
Yo, they sent me next to a werewolf? Yo, let me out!
Hey, he's not a werewolf, okay? He's a weasel. He's harmless. I mean, he's not harmless. He's killed 27 children, but, you know.
Like, is that all he is? Like, so I think what made me enjoy this movie the most, though, it doesn't really have to do with all the superhero stuff, and it really just has to do with the fact that this was probably one of the first superhero movies that I saw that explained the entire idea, plot, everything about the movie in the first 20 minutes, and there wasn't a huge exposition dump about everything going on. I just literally got to see what exactly the Suicide Squad was in 20 minutes. And then the title credits hit and you realize that the film is starting now.
Yeah, I was actually very surprised on that because it's a different change and a welcome change compared to the first one. Blaze, you did not see Suicide Squad directed by David Ayer, but edited by a trailer company, apparently. What's it called? We won't get into that, but it was cool that you kind of got the gist of what they're about within that. I kind of told you ahead of time, I don't really know what this is. Like, I hear it's a sequel, but it's still also like a soft reboot, but has some of the same characters. But yeah, like it was just unexpected, like flat out, it's already different with it being a rated R movie. But also, I didn't expect to see some, like, you know, pretty decent sized actors, like, what's it called? I can care less really about Pete Davidson, but I didn't expect him to die within the first, like, 5 minutes of the movie. In such a gory way, as well as Michael Rooker as well too, who's, like, you know, an alumni in James Gunn's other movies and stuff. Like, and also, like, I want to say, I'm not really, we are familiar with James Gunn. Like, we can't really call ourselves fans of his. Like I like Slither, but that's really it though. And I remember when Guardians of the Galaxy got announced and they hired James Gunn, we were just like, that dude's gonna bring in tentacle stuff into his, like, movies. That dude's obsessed with that.
He did.
He had jokes in Guardians of the Galaxy about tentacles, and then what do you know? He brings in a giant tentacle-like starfish in this movie too. Dude's into some weird stuff, but I actually really enjoyed seeing a starfish villain because I remember an episode of Superman the animated series, or actually, you know what, it was a Batman Beyond episode where that starfish takes over Superman. Actually, that's what it was, and Batman has to, like, help it. So, like, it was a cool throwback to my childhood seeing that. And it was just like a fun plot that actually felt genuinely like a dorky comic book storyline.
Yeah, this definitely felt like the most comic, because I feel like the majority of comic book movies don't even feel comic book-esque. Like, it doesn't feel like you're flipping a page and then all of a sudden there's a huge, like, you didn't just flip a page in a bunch of, like, 16 more panels. You actually flipped a page in a full art of, like, just something epic happening. Like, that's something that I feel like comic book movies haven't really utilized. Like, you have some shots here and there in Marvel movies, but the film doesn't make you feel like you're actually, it's a movie. They're movies. They're not good ones, but they never feel like a super comic book movie. With this film, I felt like there were so many elements of it that just felt really comic booky. It was just the titles, you know, interspersed here and there, that were sometimes even funny. Like, that just reminded me, it's literally sitting there and reading a comic book. You have plot twists that happen that you think the film's basically kind of over, and then all of a sudden, like, a huge new supervillain pops up, and it feels like literally like a new chapter in a book. Like, I just felt like this movie really, I know a lot of people will say, like, no, this is more comic book movie. It's like, I think a lot of people will just hedge their bets on, like, the heroes that they know and love, whether they've seen them in comic book movies or an animated TV show. But I felt like this, I didn't really know anything about any of the characters. I didn't even know that this starfish character was like I know all the characters were based, are actual characters from comic books, but I had no, you know, preconceived notions or any knowledge about them. So seeing them for the first time, it still felt the movie itself felt very much like a comic book. So it kind of gave that vibe where I feel like most movies, I'm just sitting there watching an actual movie. I know the Hulk is, like, from comic books. I've read some of his books, but I don't feel like the movies are really making a note of it being like a super comic booky movie. I don't know how to quite explain it, but that's just kind of the vibe that I got getting this movie. I don't feel like they wasted the fact that this was based on a comic book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I think also similar to, like, a comic book or something overall, you gotta, like, kind of build it, like, with the Marvel movies, I always remember that, like, kind of you're just thrown in and stuff. You're expected to have seen the other ones, so, like, you care for the character just because you've seen them in multiple movies. But this one, though, you know, they're throwing in, like, you know, this is mainly a brand new cast and stuff, and, like, you know, I don't know anything about this this Bloodsport character, but Idris Elba, though, he's given enough, like, character arc to where you care for him and want him to survive. And I was surprised actually with this Ratcatcher 2 character, like, kind of being the heart of the movie too, like, characters I've never heard of in the comics, as well as, like, the polka dot just being more played as a joke and stuff. But, like, just, like, it was crazy how, like, characters I would normally, like, make fun of or think are stupid, I actually, like, wanted them to survive towards the end of the movie and stuff. And especially King Shark, I think, was my favorite character within this.
This movie kind of reminded me slightly of a comic book called The Worst X-Men. I think it's called The Worst X-Men. And that was, like, one of my favorite. It's like a short run, but it was like, I think they added it to be a graphic novel at some point. It's like only like 6 issues, but it reminded me of that where it's like such a dumb title of, like, it's like The Worst X-Men. All right, what's the worst X-Men? And, like, basically his power is just, like, he'll explode one day. Like, so he's not even really a superhero. Like, his power is, like, he'll eventually just die. Like, so what, like, how, that's literally the worst power. Like, your power is only going to use once. You're like a human grenade, essentially.
Right,
so that's why, like, the Polka Dot Man kind of reminded me of that. And, like, all the Suicide Squad characters in this film reminded me of that, you know, aside from Harley Quinn, which obviously wasn't, like, my favorite character. And I'm glad that she wasn't really, like, told, like, this film wasn't entirely about her. And I think she was a welcome addition. But at the same time, like, I enjoyed all the screen time that all the other characters got and all the development that they got just in this one film. I felt like you kind of were mentioning just the fact that you had a lot of character development in just this one film, and it didn't feel like you had to watch, you need to watch the original Suicide Squad because you need to know who Harley Quinn is and where she came from. Her character is probably the least important in this film. But it's something for, you know, fans to attach onto because they recognize you from the previous films and know who she is from, you know, Birds of Prey or the original Suicide Squad. But you didn't really need that knowledge. I'm case in point. I haven't seen either Birds of Prey or Suicide Squad. I probably won't. But I just enjoyed this movie just for really the storytelling that was there. I felt like the stakes are set up within the first 20 minutes. For me, that's something that's always in superhero movies. The stakes are there, but at the same time, like, it doesn't really matter. And I think we know that it took 6 movies to get Thanos, and like, oh, he's gonna really just snap and make everyone disappear. And then one film later, you just beat him, and it's who cares? Who cares? You need 6 other films to beat him. I feel like for it to be quantifiable, you know?
Yeah, I was just very thankful that it wasn't like a cliche villain. It's definitely something we've never seen before. Like, of course, there's the zombie undead army where it's like, you know, blank faces of them fighting and stuff. Like, you know, that part might be cliche, but it's a different take on it, which I enjoyed and stuff. And like, yeah, this is like definitely unlike any superhero movie like we've gotten to see. Like, if you can call it that. Like, overall, it's just like a more like I hate that people have described it as like a high budget trauma movie, but at times it did feel like that and stuff. And I'm glad that like Warner Brothers took a chance on it. It doesn't seem like it banked well for them, but you know, that's a whole separate conversation. But yeah, overall, like, I'm pleasantly surprised.
I'm kind of fine if you want to talk about that, because I think it would be remiss to not have at least like a short conversation on just the fact that this movie's already being said like, oh, this is a huge failure for Warner Brothers. It only made 29.5 million at the box office. But I do think that that's almost like a bullshit statistic, or it's stupid that they're quantifying it on just box office numbers when this clearly was released on HBO Max. I'm pretty sure if you were to look into the streaming, it got a ton of views. But the problem is that depending on who wants to be the gatekeeper there, like if Warner Brothers doesn't want to do another one of these, then they don't need to say that this did well at the box office, or it did in streaming wise. Sorry, not the box office. That this did well streaming wise, and just hedge our bets on box office numbers. Let alone this isn't the first couple weeks of the theaters reopening. This is starting to become this resurgence of people might not want to be going back to the theaters at this moment in time. So I do think that would definitely be kind of an effect of maybe a lot of people who were going to go to the theaters decided not to, and that's probably going to bleed into the next couple weeks too. So we'll see how Free Guy does at the theaters. It might help that Free Guy is not available on streaming to my knowledge, so that might have more people go to the theaters than usual, as opposed to this. It was like Friday night, I'm like, what better way to spend it than checking this out on HBO Max? Because all the other HBO Max movies have sucked, and this has probably been the first one that I've enjoyed, besides maybe Kong Skull Island. But I think that this is a much better film than that, you know?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, this had it all, and like it's a bummer. Like it's kind of like ending like the final movie of the summer. There are some other movies I'm looking forward to for this last month of August and stuff, but like. Yeah, like at the end of the day, though, even if it is a financial disappointment stuff, like I'm glad that critics like it. It seems to have that audience, and maybe this audience will build too in the Blu-ray release and stuff too. Granted, it's the COVID, like, you know, has been a big factor in box office for the past over a year now, but it's still bad too, with like cases still rising. So yeah, like at the end of the day, like what are you gonna do? Like, you know.
Yeah, I just think if any time was to listen purely to critics as opposed to box office numbers, it would probably be right now, because Warner Brothers would really be caught slipping if they're just gonna give James Gunn back and not put him on retainer and give him back to Disney, because you know he's never leaving that camp if he goes back to Disney. So it would be a really good idea if Disney was to say, you know, this movie's not that successful, look how much money other films made at the box office. Warner Brothers, it would be a horrible idea for you to keep James Gunn around and make a Suicide Squad 2, or I mean, maybe he doesn't want to do that. Maybe he wants to adapt another Warner Brothers property, or create maybe even an original film. We want Guardians of the Galaxy 3, so
yeah.
But yeah, I say, like, if you guys don't know anything about Suicide Squad or anything, you're gonna be in the same shoes as me. I think overall it's a really enjoyable movie. It's not like the best movie ever made. I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot of great things about it, but it's just been a while since I've seen a comic book movie that I really did enjoy.
Yeah, it's honestly like same. Yeah, there's been a couple, but like this one I actually genuinely did enjoy. So definitely sounds like we're both like highly recommending to check it out. Check it out on HBO Max while you can. I think it'll be streaming on there for a month before eventually being released on Blu-ray and stuff. But yeah, be sure to catch it there or check it out in theaters, and let us know what you thought about it in the comments down below.
And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and click that notification bell to get all our latest updates.
And if you can't get enough of us here on YouTube, well, you're in luck, because check out all of our social media platforms. We are on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Catch all our links down below. Anyways, guys, that's going to conclude this week's episode of Fresh Releases. Tune in next week for a brand new video.